Welcome to another episode of Pod. So today, I want you to imagine being like the absolute standout teenage star of the most watched kids television movie of the entire year.
Okay, so you're basically holding a winning lottery ticket at that point.
Right. You are seemingly on this ultimate fast track to global superstardom. I mean, you've got the raw talent, you have this undeniable charisma, and most important for the industry, you actually have the data backing you up. You are pulling in massive numbers.
Which is usually a guarantee in Hollywood.
Exactly. But then, just out of nowhere, your record label drops you. You're effectively sidelined, and behind closed doors, they basically tell you that you simply aren't marketable enough.
It's just a jarring, almost unbelievable contradiction. You know, you do everything right, and the very people who built you up suddenly declare that your brand has absolutely no value.
And that is the exact scenario that happened to the subject of our deep dive today. We're talking about Courtney Michaela and Jones.
Who the world knows as Coco Jones.
Right. And if you're listening to this, you probably recognize her name. Like, you might know her from her recent incredibly well-deserved Grammy win, or maybe you're a huge fan of her starring role in the hit series Bel-Air.
Oh, she's incredible in that.
She really is. But the story we are unpacking today is so much more than just a list of recent accolades. This is really about surviving the brutal, highly calculated machinery of child stardom. It's about confronting systemic industry bias head-on, and ultimately clawing back to the top of the entertainment world completely on your own terms.
Yeah, and to really grasp the magnitude of her comeback, we kind of have to understand the environment that built her, you know? We have to look at the sheer resilience it took to navigate that very specific path.
I always think of fame, especially in her case, like a rubber band. Sometimes being pulled backward violently is exactly what creates the tension you need to launch yourself further than anyone expected.
That's a great way to look at it.
So let's start at the beginning, because from what I understand, she didn't just stumble into the entertainment industry. She was born into a family that intimately understood high stakes and high pressure. Right?
So very much so. So she was born in January 1998, and she was raised in Lebanon, Tennessee. And talent and discipline were quite literally baked into her upbringing from day one.
Wow.
Yeah. Her father, Mike Jones, was an NFL player. Her mother, Javonda, was a professional session vocalist, and even her brother, Mike Jones Jr., would go on to play elite college football for LSU.
That is just a fascinating combination of genetics and environment. You have like elite athletic discipline on one side, you know, the grueling, repetitive grind of professional sports and professional musical artistry on the other.
Right.
That kind of household doesn't just foster talent, it really prepares a child for the reality of performing under intense scrutiny.
And that preparation showed up incredibly early. I mean, we were talking about a child who wasn't just casually humming along to the radio in the back seat. At her kindergarten graduation, she stood up and delivered a solo vocal performance of America the Beautiful.
Wait, at her kindergarten graduation, most kids at that age are just like trying not to trip over their shoelaces or waving to their parents in the crowd.
Exactly. Delivering a dedicated vocal performance at 5 or 6 years old, it just points to an unusual level of focus. And the industry noticed quickly. By the time Coco was 9 years old, she was already taking meetings with casting heads for Disney.
9 years old. That's wild.
Yeah, which initiates her rapid ascent through what we can really only describe as the Disney machine.
Do you break that down for us a bit?
Yeah.
When you say the Disney machine, what does that pipeline actually look like for a kid? Because from the outside, it's just like, boom, they suddenly appear on our television screens.
Sure. So it is a highly structured, highly controlled corporate pipeline designed to groom multi-platform stars. They basically test you out in smaller, low-risk environments first. Okay.
So for Coco, that started in 2006 when she competed on Radio Disney with a track called Real You.
Right.
Then by 2009, she's performing live on national television. She was featured on the Maury Povich Show for their Most Talented Kids episode.
So they're testing if she can handle a live audience and a camera.
Precisely. And she passes those tests with flying colors. By 2010, she becomes the runner-up on Radio Disney's Next Big Thing singing competition. And once the network knows she resonates with their core demographic, they start placing her in their established acting properties.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, so she starts popping up in sketch comedy shows like So Random and major sitcoms like Good Luck Charlie.
So they are essentially cross-pollinating her across their network, just getting the audience super familiar with her face.
Uh,
And it's all building up to 2012.
exactly. 2012 is the definitive breakthrough. She lands the lead role of Roxanne Roxy Andrews in the Disney Channel original movie Let It Shine.
Oh, Let It Shine was huge. Massive. She co-stars alongside Tyler James Williams. She provides lead vocals for the movie soundtrack. And the film just becomes an absolute phenomenon. It doesn't just do well. It becomes the most watched kids and tweens movie of the entire year across all television networks.
You really have to pause and consider the scale of that success for a second. The most watched movie of the year for that demographic. And this is where we see the concept of corporate synergy kick into high gear.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Disney isn't just making a movie here, they're launching a product line. A hit movie sells a soundtrack, the soundtrack sells a concert tour, the tour sells merchandise, and Coco is the engine driving all of it.
She was the perfect engine. Because of the movie's massive success, she signs a record deal with Hollywood Records, which is Disney's music group.
Right?
She drops her debut single, Holla at the DJ, and they premiere the music video directly on the Disney Channel to millions of captive viewers. Then, by early 2013, she releases her EP, Made Of, which immediately hits the top 10 of the Billboard Heat Seekers chart.
The momentum is staggering. But I look at all this corporate synergy, the tours, the movie deals, the constant television presence, and I can't help but wonder, how much of this was actually Coco and how much was just executives pulling the strings?
That's a great question.
Like when a 14-year-old achieves that level of cross-platform integration, is she operating as a true artist, or is she just functioning as a highly efficient product on an assembly line?
I mean, that is the defining tension of child stardom. At that stage, in that specific ecosystem, the line between artist and product is incredibly blurred, if not entirely non-existent.
Yeah.
The network and the label, they provide the songs, they dictate the wardrobe, they control the platform, and they manufacture the audience.
Wow.
Coco was undeniably talented. You cannot fake the raw vocal ability she brought to Let It Shine, but she was ultimately executing a vision crafted by adults in boardrooms. She was the talent, but she was not the architect.
Which brings us to the most shocking part of this entire trajectory. We go from the ultimate euphoric high in 2013 to a sudden, inexplicable cliff drop in 2014. Despite starring in their biggest movie, despite her EP charting and her singles performing, Hollywood Records drops her.
Yeah. They let her go completely.
Hold on, you're telling me a network produces the most watched movie of the year, her music charts, and they just walk away? That completely defies business logic.
It really does.
Usually when a star delivers those kinds of numbers, a studio locks them into a multi-year contract and just milks that momentum for everything it's worth. How do they even justify dropping her?
From the outside, it defied all conventional logic. And for a long time, the public was left guessing. It wasn't until years later, in 2020, that Coco herself provided the context for what happened behind closed doors.
What'd she say?
She opened up publicly about her experiences in the industry, and she spoke directly about colorism. She revealed that executives had essentially decided she wasn't marketable enough to move forward.
Marketable enough. You're probably wondering, just like I am, how a studio looks at a chart-topping, record-breaking star and says no thanks. And the answer is that sanitized industry buzzword. Marketability.
Exactly.
Let's look at what that word actually means behind closed doors. It sounds like a math problem, right? It sounds like it's just about demographics, ad spend, and target audiences. But when you look at the reality of how it operates, marketability is so often used as a corporate shield to hide plain and simple colorism.
That is exactly how it functions. When an executive says a young black girl isn't marketable, they are relying on historical algorithms and biases. They're looking for a safe or traditional pop star mold, which historically prioritized white artists.
Right.
According to Coco's own account of her lived experience, despite her undeniable talent and the proven data-backed success of her projects, she was sidelined by systemic bias disguised as a business decision.
How does a teenager who has done everything right, who has carried a network's biggest movie on her shoulders, who has put in the grueling hours, how does she even begin to process being told that her skin color allegedly makes her unmarketable?
The psychological weight of that is immense. When you are a teenager, your sense of identity is already incredibly fragile. You're just figuring out who you are.
Yeah, it's hard enough without the industry weighing in.
Right. So to have your worth quantified and then dismissed by a monolithic industry based on your race It is a profoundly damaging experience. It's a moment that would have completely broken many young performers. It would have sent them walking away from the entertainment industry entirely.
But she didn't walk away. And that leads us into a really fascinating era of her life. From roughly 2014 to 2021, the industry machine drops her, but she refuses to quit. She enters the wilderness, basically.
She transitions into a grueling independent hustle. Instead of fading into obscurity, she takes absolute control of her own output. She starts funding and releasing independent music.
Which is not cheap or easy.
Not at all. But we see tracks like Peppermint drop in 2014. She puts out an 8-track EP in 2019 called HDWY and follows that up into 2020 with singles like Depressed and Hollyweird.
We have to talk about what it actually takes for a former child star to independently fund and market themselves when the industry turns its back. She doesn't have a massive PR team anymore.
No.
She doesn't have a built-in television network playing her music videos on a loop. She is piecing together scattered gigs just to keep the lights on and the momentum going.
Right. She's taking whatever opportunities she can secure to stay active. So in 2017, she appears in a Fanta commercial.
Okay.
In 2018, she acts in a 1950s-era jazz film called Flock of Four. She pops up in the 2020 Netflix film Vampires vs. the Bronx. She even launched a YouTube series called Tea and Coco.
It reminds me of an elite athlete doing resistance training underwater. Think of how that feels. When you are training underwater, every single movement requires 10 times the effort. It feels painfully slow.
Yeah, that's a great visual.
And the hardest part is, nobody is in the pool watching you practice. There's no stadium crowd cheering you on. You are doing the invisible, grueling work. But what you're actually doing is building the exact deep tissue muscles you need so that when you finally step back onto dry land, you absolutely dominate.
That is the perfect way to understand this era. It's very tempting for people to look at those years between 2014 and 2021 and label them a slump or a failure simply because she wasn't on billboards.
Right.
But they were a crucible. She was building her independent voice. For the first time in her life, she was operating without the restrictions of a corporate machine. She wasn't having executives pick her songs or dictate her image. She was figuring out who Coco Jones was as an adult artist.
She survived the resistance training.
Yeah.
And the muscles she built were ready for the main stage. The tide finally turns in September 2021. The announcement hits that she has been cast in the Peacock drama series Bel-Air.
This is the catalyst for her entire renaissance. Bel-Air is a dramatic reimagining of the iconic 90s sitcom The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Coco is cast in the role of Hilary Banks.
Which is such an iconic character.
It is. The show premieres in early 2022, and it is a massive hit. It instantly places her right back into the center of the cultural zeitgeist.
There is such a beautiful, poetic irony in that casting. She steps into a show that is entirely about reimagining a classic 90s property. And that exact vehicle is what she uses to completely reimagine her own career in the public eye.
Absolutely.
She took a character that people already knew, a character that could easily have been a caricature, and she breathed entirely new, complex life into her. I mean, she earned multiple BEAT Award nominations for Best Actress for that role.
She proved she could handle dramatic weight. And when the acting spotlight swung back onto her, the music industry was suddenly right there waiting.
Naturally.
Right. The momentum from her acting provided the perfect leverage for her musical return. So in March 2022, she officially signs a new deal with High Standards and Def Jam Recordings.
The major labels came calling again, but this time, the dynamic is entirely different. She isn't a 14-year-old taking what she is given. She is coming to the table with a fully formed identity.
She knows her worth now.
Exactly. So she releases her EP, What I Didn't Tell You. And we have to talk about the mechanics of the track ICU. That song changed the trajectory of everything.
ICU was the undeniable breakthrough of her adult career. It organically climbed the charts, becoming her first entry on the Billboard Hot 100. It was certified platinum by the RAAA.
Huge.
But the ultimate validation for her vocal prowess came at the 2024 Grammy Awards.
She won the Grammy for Best R&B Performance, and she was nominated for 5 awards that night, including Best New Artist. It's just staggering when you look at where she started.
It's an incredible comeback.
And she isn't just winning awards, she's collaborating with legends. She featured on a track called Simple for Babyface's album. She rode that incredible wave right into 2025, releasing her critically acclaimed debut studio album, Why Not More, which earned her yet another Grammy nomination for Best R&B Album.
What's vital to recognize here is the sonic foundation she built during those indie years. When you listen to What I Didn't Tell You or Why Not More, you aren't hearing a manufactured pop product. You hear a vocalist of profound depth.
Yeah, you can really hear the soul in it.
She has explicitly cited powerhouse vocalists as her inspirations. Beyoncé, Whitney Houston, Aretha Franklin, and Jasmine Sullivan.
You can totally hear that lineage in her tone. She isn't just singing the notes, she is conveying history and emotion. Her voice has this rich, textured maturity to it, and her success has elevated her to this rare status of a true multi-hyphenate star.
She really is everywhere now.
Look at the milestones she's hitting outside of the recording booth. In April 2024, she steps out into a massive stadium and performs the national anthem at WrestleMania XL.
That is not an easy gig.
Not at all. That is a crowd of tens of thousands of people who will let you know exactly how they feel if you mess up a single note. And she just flawlessly delivered.
And alongside these massive professional triumphs, she is finding deep personal joy. In July 2025, she announced her engagement to NBA player Donovan Mitchell.
Oh.
Yeah, it really paints a picture of someone who has finally found stability and success on all fronts after years of grinding in the wilderness.
It really does. But out of everything we've looked at in this deep dive, all the awards, the charting singles, the hit TV shows, the absolute ultimate poetic justice happens in the very near future.
Oh, this is the best part.
In 2029, she has been cast to play Tiana in the live-action remake of The Princess and the Frog. She even gave us a preview of this by reimagining the song Almost There with Disney in 2024.
It is the absolute definition of coming full circle.
The exact same corporate entity that dropped her as a teenager, the one where executives allegedly deemed her not marketable enough because of the color of her skin, has now tapped her to be a literal, undeniable Disney princess.
It proves that undeniable talent, when paired with sheer persistence, can outlast systemic bias. When the industry refused to give her a seat at the table, she went out, built her own table, and eventually forced them to pull up a chair.
Which leaves us with a pretty heavy thought to chew on. Coco Jones knew her worth when the room told her otherwise, and she fought until the world caught up. But it really makes you wonder, if someone with Coco Jones's generational, undeniable talent was almost entirely filtered out by an industry's flawed algorithm for marketability.
How many others have we lost?
Exactly. How many other once-in-a-generation voices are we missing out on right now simply because an executive decided they didn't fit the math?
It completely changes how you look at the media we consume and, who doesn't get the chance to make it to our screens.
Thanks for listening to People Pod. Keep tuning in for more stories worth knowing.